Hello everybody, welcome to another video. Oof, this one's a doozy. This is one of those projects that I go into not knowing exactly what the outcome is going to be. I have visions for it, but I have no idea what is under this horrible purple paint. And this was obviously in a kid's room. That's fine, kids love purple. But it's time for this little vanity slash desk to get a makeover and grow up, for lack of a better term. This was way more work than intended, but quite the transformation, so stick around. My name is Angie and I refinish furniture. Sometimes I paint and sometimes I don't, but I always do what I can to save old pieces from the trash. Welcome to my workroom. Now this may be different in different parts of the world, but around here, these little vanities and desks are usually made of either walnut, maple, sometimes birch. I'm guessing that it's one of those three, I just don't really know what yet. These are not the original pulls. Whenever you see two knobs like that, that's because someone has taken off the original hardware and replaced it with these knobs. So for sure this is getting some new hardware. There's a lot of dust and debris and kids stuff inside here, so I'm just gonna give this a good vacuuming. Normally I don't vacuum until after I'm done sanding, but I don't know, I just want to get this stuff out. I already know that I'm dealing with multiple layers of paint here, but I don't really know exactly what type of paint it is, so I'm going to try some stripper first. Chances are, if there's latex on here or underneath the purple, it's going to turn into a disaster. I hate removing latex paint, it's the absolute worst. It turns into a gummy, sticky mess. But the way it is here, it's too thick to scrape entirely. It would take me literally days, so it may be a case of doing one layer at a time. I'm just gonna get the stripper on here and see how it goes. So the stripper has been sitting on here for about 10 minutes now. This is a beautiful sight. I absolutely love stripping paint off, which might sound strange because I also put paint on, but totally different type of paint, totally different technique. With the very first swipe of the putty knife here, I can tell this is going to be one of those instances where the paint underneath turns into a disaster. I've been scraping for about 30 seconds now and I already want to quit. I already want to put it out on the curb. I've been here before. This stuff is so hard to get off. I don't know if it's white primer underneath or if it's a different type of paint. All I know is I'm totally bummed out right now. I decided to test for lead on the white paint underneath. I know the purple's not, I can just tell. And I don't think the white one is, but I'm just going to test it to be safe. These kits are super easy to use. All you do is you dip the cotton swab in some vinegar, it turns a mustard yellow color, and then you rub it on the surface of the paint or finish for about 30 seconds. If you have a color change and it turns pink or red, that indicates the presence of lead. No lead here, so safe to continue as I am. I'm going to try adding another layer of the stripper to see if it will get down through the white paint. And as you can see, again, it just turns into white paint soup. So the next tool in my arsenal is this 3M stripping pad. And as you can see, that is helping to get some of this slurry off the wood, but it's just still not where I need it to be. I don't typically find mineral spirits all that helpful when stripping paint. It's great for stripping oil-based finishes, but I'm thinking maybe this is an oil-based paint and that's why I'm having such an issue with it. But no, it still doesn't really help. So at this point, I decide to just let everything completely dry. I'm going to come in with a couple of scrapers and see if I can't get a little bit more off. The more I can get off before sanding, the easier a sanding job is going to be. If you're wondering why I didn't just scrape to begin with, the paint was just way too thick. And same thing with sanding, there's no way I could have just sanded through this. So I'm finally getting down into the wood, I'm getting my first look at it. I'm pretty sure this is actually birch, and it's not in the best shape. There are a lot of scratches and dings and gouges. But there's something about the color of this right now that reminds me of driftwood, actually, and I'm starting to get inspired here. Like I said, I had no idea what was under this. If it was walnut under here, I would probably have a totally different vision for this piece. But this sort of aged, almost like burnwood, driftwood feel I'm getting, and I'm not down to the bare wood yet, but I think that's the direction I'm going to be going with this piece. Just to show you what I mean, because the top is nice and flat, I grabbed my sharpest, best scraper to show you here, and sometimes with these waterfall vanities and dressers, the wood grain runs over the top. Thankfully, this one is running lengthwise, which means I can pull these big long scrapes without worrying about gouging the wood. One thing of note though, if you are attempting a waterfall piece like this, the tops are almost always veneer, so be careful. Now, I went at this for a while and no, there is no way I'm going to be able to scrape this. I'm already several hours into this piece. I thought this was going to be a quick one. I was completely wrong, so I'm adding stripper to the top. Kind of like roulette in a way. When you choose to strip a piece that's been painted, you have no idea why it was painted in the first place. Sometimes people paint to hide damage, and as you can see here, there are a lot of scratches and dings, and maybe someone just thought, hey, instead of refinishing, I'll just paint it and give it a refresh, which is fine. Sometimes people paint just because they want to change, and those are my favorite ones because the wood underneath is usually in pretty good shape. Yeah, you never really know what you're gonna get. And in this case, I got a lot more than I bargained for. There is no way I'm gonna be able to get every bit of white paint off, but I'm gonna do what I can. So the first layer of stripper removed the purple paint and a little bit of the white. I'm just trying to scrape up what's left here with the spatula or a putty knife. It's so thick and sticky, and I don't know what is underneath this. I'm not certain it's the original finish. It's so dark and so thick, but you never know. I was having a hard time getting the rest of the white paint off, so I grabbed a 6-inch card scraper. These are a little tricky to use. Sometimes you want to push it away from you. In this case, I'm choosing to pull towards me. You basically hold it on the sides with your fingers, and your thumb gives it a slight bend in the middle, and it did a pretty good job of taking off the rest of the white. I popped on a 120 grit sand pad here. I definitely don't want to go anything coarser than that on this veneer top. And it was taking some of it off, but it was still being a little bit stubborn, and it was gumming up my sand pad. So I grabbed my scraper yet again and tried to get this thick finish off. I have no idea what this is, and I keep saying that, but it baffles me. This is roughly the point where I wanted to put this out on the curb because I'm already past the point of no return, and what I mean by that is I will never get enough back money-wise to account for all of the hours I have put in thus far. You get these projects every now and then where you just, if you were charging yourself an hourly rate, you would lose money. This is one of them, but this has become a labor of love in a way, and I'm really stubborn, so I'm persevering. I'm giving the remaining purple sections a good scuff sanding. This is where I'm going to be painting, and this little strip here on the edge of the wood I am going to scrape down to bare wood. I wasn't really able to get every little mark and ding and scratch out of the wood, but that's okay, and in fact, it's gonna help with the look I'm going for. I've had this huge piece of driftwood for, oh gosh, probably 7 or 8 years now, For some reason, I'm really inspired by it, and this piece kind of reminds me of that. The colors, the markings, the holes. So I'm going to try to emphasize that a little bit with my design here. I'm going to be using a type of Odie's oil to seal this wood, but I'm also going to be tinting it with these two creative colors. The creative colors are natural pigments, and there's two ways you can actually use them. You can make an oil-based stain by adding it directly into the Odie's oil, or the Super Duper Everlasting oil. If you want to get a little bit of a darker stain, adding some of the Odie's safer solvent will help dissolve that pigment, and then you mix the oil into that. It cures a little bit faster this way, and you can also add another coat of stain if you want to add a little bit more color or tint it even more. With either method, the higher grit you sand to means the less color you're going to get. So if you want a dark stain, don't sand quite as high. I need to say a huge thank you to Leah or Leah, I'm not sure how to pronounce your name, I'm sorry. But she sent me these super cute little 1.5 ounce hexagon glass jars, and they are perfect for a project like this. This one jar will do all of the wood on this piece and probably still have half the jar left over. I'm applying this with a Merca Merlon pad, which is the same way I apply the Odie's Universal Oil. This is the Super Duper Everlasting Oil, which is also an Odie's product, but it's not as thick as the Universal Oil. I know the color looks a little intense at first. Don't worry, it is going to lighten up as I spread the oil out. I still want to apply it as sparingly as possible. It's the same with the Odie's Universal Oil. This is a wipe on, wipe off product, so if you put too much on, you're literally just wasting it. Now I knew that the top was going to be a little bit different than the sides. The sides are solid wood, the top is a piece of pretty thin veneer. It's a little bit lighter, and so you can see here the color is a little bit different. I'm going to address that in a little bit, but for now I'm just working on getting all of the wood covered with this product. I'm letting this mixture sit on the wood for about 10 minutes or so and then wiping it off. And as I'm wiping this off, you can see that nice sort of almost driftwood-like color coming through. This is exactly what I wanted on the sides. The top is still a little dark, so all I'm doing is taking some of the Odie Safer Solvent and just wiping it off, and you can see that it's now closer to the wood on the sides, so that works perfectly. As I mentioned way back in the beginning, I am going to be changing the hardware on this piece. These are the pulls that I thought would best suit the piece, considering the design I'm going for, but I need to drill some new holes. So I'm just marking those out, drilling the new holes, and I'm going to be filling the old holes with some wood filler. I always try to make sure to add enough wood filler that it fills the entire hole, and then I'll leave it a little bit proud of the surface so that when I sand it, I'm sanding it smooth rather than there being a little dip where the hole was. Now I really like this sort of rustic feel the wood has, except for this front piece here. It's too red. I don't know why that one board is so red, but I used some safer solvent to remove the stain and then a little bit of a hand sand. I'm using one of my custom mixed colors here to paint the rest of the piece. It's kind of a gray with just a hint of green. It reminds me a little bit of a foggy day, so I think it's going to look nice with what I've done with the wood here. You might be wondering why I'm not using a primer here, and generally I won't use a primer if I'm not worried about bleed through and if I'm not worried about adhesion. There's already a few layers of paint on here. It's been scuff sanded, there's no waxes or oil residue, I'm not worried about adhesion. And this particular color that I've mixed up here I know has great coverage, so 2 coats of paint and that was good to go. It's been a little while since Willow's popped in to say hello. Don't worry, we're nearing the end. Now the last step in sort of my vision for this piece is to gray the wood just slightly, and I'm doing that by using the liming wax from Fusion Mineral Paint. All I'm doing is brushing it on, immediately wiping it off, and all it's going to do is just sort of tone down that color a little bit more. The Odies had already completely dried. This isn't going to affect any of that. All this is doing is just slightly changing the tone of the wood. I also use the liming wax on the paint. A couple of the drawers needed some attention to the bottom, so I'm just lightly sanding them. I'm taking care to avoid this seal. I just did a quick pass over it. Just enough so that when I put this hemp oil on, it's going to soak in. I find these old pieces, they dry out so much over the years, and adding this hemp oil, it's like a big drink for this poor thirsty wood. All that's left now is just to attach this new hardware, slide the drawers back in, stage the piece, and take some pictures. This was an experiment of sorts. I wasn't entirely sure how it was going to turn out because I had no idea what was under this terrible purple paint. The wood underneath wasn't as nice as I hoped it would be, but I think I came up with a way to keep most of it as wood and almost highlight the imperfections rather than try to hide them with a dark stain or more paint. It is time. Let's have a look. Thank you so much for watching.